Oh, wow. Shabbat Shalom. Hey, how you guys doing? Pura vida, mi gente. Thanks for taking the time to be here. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Shout out to everybody in the live chat. Shout out to everybody tuned in live. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Hope you're having a good day. A strong end, a strong beginning, not a weekend, right? A strong end, and just stay strong. Yeah. Wow. So we're gonna basically, because this is fresh, right? This idea of specific nations of Africa actually coming in from Asia or Europe or other parts of the world and not indigenous to Africa. And a lot of them happen to be the ruling ethnic groups of Africa today. So it's a very important subject. Again, this is not to try to talk down on anybody or try to say anybody's a colonizer or anything like that. It's more about awareness and being humble and knowing really who you are, your whole history, not just a biased one or a belief system one where it's just like a religious belief where you're just stuck in beliefs and you don't know and there is no proof and it just becomes myth and almost done intentionally so that you don't know the true origin, but yet the traditions, the local official court historians maintain this truth, right? So we're just gonna continue today and finish up a book that I kind of read at the end of my last video on the Yoruba people, right? We're gonna kind of read that book a little bit more. Has a lot of good info and a lot of good things to think about, things that also we can verify. So we have already proven. He's gonna mention stuff that we already kind of went over, right? So right away, I'm gonna go ahead and invite you to catch the previous videos. That this video is going to be, I'm sorry, the playlist, not the videos, the previous playlist, right? Then I'm going to put this video on so you guys can be aware of the investigation we've already kind of done with other nations. So this is the playlist right here. Let me just show you. All right, so Africans not from Africa. If you go to my homepage tab, you can go ahead and find numerous playlists. This is one of them pertaining to today's subject, right? Africans not from Africa. We got the Shona people, Persia. You know, the Shona people are in Zimbabwe, right? Great Zimbabwe, right? They're supposed to be Bantus, part of the Bantu migrations. The Shona people coming from Persia, so-called Persia or the East, right? Or that part of the world, Asia Minor. And yeah, the Khoisan were there before. And then we got the Kanem Borno people, the Hausa people. Their origin stories from Baghdad, Palestine, and Arabia. And their progenitor Bajajita. All right, this is all official history. This is real. It's not trying to talk down or change anybody or try to say anybody is, you know, it's not about always being African. So it's not about, I'm trying to say, oh, you're not that African. Well, you've been there for hundreds of years now. So I guess you can say, yeah, you are African. But when we're talking about a real history and indigenous people and a real migration stories of people coming in from other parts of the world into Africa, we got to talk about that too and tell it correctly. Because this definitely debunks the whole out of Africa theory. We've already debunked that theory so much, you know, in so many ways. But this is just adding more icing to the cake and helping us understand history a lot better. I think if we all kind of understood this, we will see, you know, not only the differences of each other, but that kind of like maybe helps us understand people better, so there's no like so much hate and you know all that and all this confusion, all these wars. They're all for a reason, you know, because we live in a false history. We live and we're not learning from it, right? So what happens when you don't learn from history? You're doomed to repeat it. You know what I mean? You're doomed to repeat it. All right. We also got a video on the Lebu people. You're gonna hear it from their own historian, Omar Gueye, a Lebu historian, descendant. His grandma told him he's the storyteller. His people coming in from Hindustan. Yeah, all the way from Hindustan, India, right? Today called India, but Hindustan. These ain't no theories, okay? Then we had a great conversation about the so-called Black Caucasians who colonized Africa with our special guest Lamine Barry and Cimarron, we're gonna probably have him back on, and that was a great build. Make sure to catch that. And just the other day, I did one on the Yoruba, coming in from Yemen, Arabia, Jarub, Oduduwa, Katan, Joktan, the pure Arabs. We're talking about pure Arabs. That's what we're gonna continue today. As the title of the video today is The Unknown Arabs. That's the title of a book we're going to get into, the Arab origin of many African nations, right? And migrations from Arabia into Africa. That's kind of the main topics, right? Of this book that we're going to get. Okay, so the unknown Arabs, right? Clear and definitive proof of the dark complexion of the original Arabs and the Arab origin of the so-called African Americans. Dodge the hijack. So we do have to dodge the hijack a little bit, unfortunately, but that's okay. We still give props to the author Tariq Berry. This ain't the Tariq we know in this community. This is another one, right? I think it is, yeah. If I'm not mistaken. It doesn't appear to be the same one. I don't think it is. Because I don't think he'd be saying these people coming in from Arabia, not Africans, and talking bad about pan-Africanism. You'll see, we're going to read this. But still, there is an unknown part of this, when they're adding their slave trade to America, that part, we already debunked all that. But shout out to the author. Get the book if you like, support, here's the book. He did pretty good work as I was kind of reading this little bit here and there. So remember, we kind of read parts of this in the last video I did Yoruba. All right, we kind of skipped parts, but we're gonna go ahead and so the Arab al Ariba, or the pure Arabs, we read on that, right? We saw the trees here, right? These genealogical trees. Look at this. The Mandingo are from the Gada. I only found people of the Gada in Pakistan, ancient. And they're saying they're Elamites, so it kind of makes sense. Elamites are also Persians, so-called Persians. Elam is the son of Shem, still Semitic people. And then we got Katan or Joktan, where Jarub or Deruba come from, and from him also come the Himyarites. So that combination of the Gada, who are Elamites, and the people of Joktan, you get the Mandingo. Interesting. Where does he get this from? We shall verify in future episodes. All right, guys. I'm on the trail. And then we got the coming out the Mandingo with that mixture, right? With that mixture, that old Semitic mixture, right? These ain't Hebrews though. Don't get it confused. Hebrews comes from Eber down to Peleg, his son Peleg, not Joktan, right? Peleg, and then eventually to Abraham, right? And that's after that is Hebrews. And then when you're talking Israelite, then you're talking about from Isaac, the son of Abraham, not Ishmael, right? Not Ishmael, Isaac. And then from Isaac, you get Jacob, not Esau, right? So these are all these, so that's your Israelite. So we're not even there yet. So now when we're saying that mixture that the Mandingo supposedly have right here in this time, in this chronological, as you guys can see, let me zoom in, my fault, right? That mixture of the Mandingo mixing with so-called Carthaginians, Canaanites, or Phoenicians, that might include Israelites. That this word right here, Phoenicians and Carthage, that might include Israelites, Danites, and things like that, or even the Simeon people. They were seafarers, Zebulon, seafaring people. That might include some Israelites. So that mixture of these Semites, they're saying, right, according to Tariq Berry, wherever he got this from, right? Which is interesting. We're going to follow up. I'm not saying this is 100%. I'm just saying this is very interesting. The makeup, because it makes sense how many different nations coming together will create a whole different group of people, right? If you guys don't understand what I'm saying, I'm trying to show you. So that mixture of the Semitic people from Elam and Joktan, are the Mandingos. They're saying they mix in with the Carthaginian, so-called Phoenicians. That what creates the Akan Ashanti. They're saying, very interesting. Kind of makes sense a little bit, right? From what we know. And again, from Khatan or Joktan, Abid is Eber. Abid in Arabic, Khatan is Joktan. His son is Jarab. Jarab is Yoruba, as you guys can see, Yoruba. So check out the Yoruba video if you haven't checked it out, guys. All right. That's kind of where we left off. All right. Then we got the Adna here, people coming from Ishmael and Abraham's side, and yeah, okay. And the Sabians coming from Joktan, and Jaruba people are related to the Sabians. Okay, we got all this, right? So we're gonna get deep into these timetables. We're gonna try to verify all this stuff when we get to it, right? We go step by step. So a lot of people don't even understand that America's just true old world yet, guys. There's a lot of people still don't understand that we debunked the out of Africa theories, guys. A lot of people still don't understand that the bones they always saying, oh, those are the oldest humans, they happen to be actual ape. They're ape bones. They're not really modern human type. We're not humans, guys. All right. So we go step by step for everybody. I appreciate you guys hearing me out right now in this intro. Before I get started, I'm just trying to I know a lot of you know everything I'm saying. I know a lot of you are very informed, but there's also a lot of new people. There's also a lot of people's feelings getting hurt with this stuff. So trying to be as respectful as possible and hopefully understood by these people so they don't think the wrong thing. We're just trying to make you aware of knowing thyself a lot more. All right. The true old world is in the Americas, so it didn't all start out there anyways. We're gonna show if we go through this book quick, I got a little bonus video to add today since we're live. Okay? All right. So we read this page. We kind of read this page on my video of the Yoruba all the way towards the end, almost 2.5 hours in. We're gonna reread this page just so we can get into the theme, right? So this author clearly knows a lot of these African nations came in from Arabia. They're Arabs or the pure Arabs, ancient, and he's gonna talk. Let's just see what he's got to say, right? We're ready to dodge the hijack always, of course. We pull out the babies, we pull out the jewels. Either way, shout out to the author for doing this. And this is I think from 2002. I think that's supposedly what Amazon says, but it says here pre-Islamic immigration. So now when it comes to the dates, he's saying, oh, they were here since pre from BC. There's different waves of people, yes, coming in, Semitic people, I would say, because we did read in the Shona video how most likely a lot of these, they're not all just, like Arabs, but there was migrations from the fall of the Assyrian Empire, the fall of the Babylonian, so-called Babylonian Empire, all these empires falling, Persian. A lot of these waves of migrations are these people coming into Africa. Okay, so that's why very important if you haven't watched, all these videos so you can understand. I have to rewatch it sometimes too, just to remember. Okay, yeah, put it all together. You're gonna start seeing who's really connected with who, what sub-tribe or clan is under what main tribe, and how they came together. Just like in the Yoruba video, how we realized that it's possible that the Hausa and the Yoruba and all these Igbos and all these people are coming in the same kind of migrations, even though they separate people where they were coming from different areas, but it's still in Arabia, possibly, and also being persecuted the same way. They all coming in, they share stories of them migrating together. So this is what I'm saying. Eventually, we're going to start putting it together. So let's just go ahead. It says, as I mentioned earlier, Arabs have been immigrating to so-called Africa since the earliest of time. So unfortunately, in this page, there's some parts that didn't get scanned correctly. So we have to kind of add a little bit on this page only. All right. So it says, he's been saying they've been coming into since the earliest time. Dr. Abdul Fattah el-Ghanemi, author of El-Madad el-Islami fi Gharb, says the Arabian Peninsula has always been a human departure and source of tremendous human waves of migration fourth in successive floods throughout the ages, numerous waves of Arab migration from the Arabian Peninsula followed one another, bursting forth towards the surrounding regions. These probably migrants or people became overflooded by the continuous waves of my these areas. Sorry, that must probably what it says. These areas became overflooded by continuous waves of migrating people into the African continent was one of the African continent was one of the destinations of these migrations that continued from time immemorial. These these people took many different routes to the area called Africa. So this is what we were saying at the end of the video on the Yoruba. They didn't just come from one direction. They probably took ships from through the so-called Red Sea, the fake Red Sea, and ended up there, or went into Gaza, Palestine, Egypt, or went in through Turkey, Asia Minor, the Mediterranean, North Africa, like many different ways they went there, or even through the bottom, going around the whole, Horn of Africa, and the bottom South Africa, going up the west of Africa. Okay, so some they crossed the Straits of Bab el Mandab, some by the Red Sea. Al-Gamina says the Red Sea played a significant role in the joining of the two continents in Africa since the most ancient of times. This is because never been an area separated from it has never been an area separated from two continents. Too bad we're missing this part. It had always been a strong connecting link ever since presence on the face of the earth. So basically, he's trying to say Arabia and Africa is really like one area. It's just split by that Red Sea. And we actually read, I think he's going to mention it again, how it was just a little, the Red Sea was a lot smaller before. It wasn't even a sea, it was like this little river. Listen, watch, like, so that makes sense because we know the real Red Sea, the Gulf of California, it used to extend all the way up, making California an island. That's the real true Red Sea. We know America's a true old world. Orientation is very important. So ever since these tremendous Arab left the Arabian Peninsula by crossing the Red Sea, and going into the African coast, the region of the Hijaz has had strong ties facing the African coast since time immemorial. The Arabs also entered the area called Africa by crossing the Isthmus of Suez and the Sinai Peninsula. And I said, see page Kurimeo says this route, the Isthmus of Suez and Peninsula, was a passageway which linked Asia to, throughout the ages, right? It linked Asia throughout the ages. He further says, though, this route, the Arab tribes flooded Egypt and Sudan, and in their march across the routes through the Sahara Desert, they reached the center of the continent of Africa, where Lake Chad is found. All right. So remember, like when we did the Shona video and even the Hausa video and all that, like this is what they told us. They ended up, and a lot of them ended up in Lake Chad. So they try to make that the origin of a lot of the Bantu people. Oh, they originated right there. And then they start adding the creation origin stories there and the myth, just like the Yoruba did, and and Ile Ife with Oduduwa. All right. Oh, we're learning. Trust me, we're learning, we're reading, we're researching. And this is from their local people. All right. So yeah. They ended up, a lot of them in the center, Lake Chad right there, and these migrations. Okay. So Bab el Mandab, many peoples and tribes that are now considered African, are the descendants of these early migrants to the area called Africa. Peoples and tribes such as the Phoenicians, the Elamites, the Carthaginians, the Sabians, and other southern Arabians, and the Hyksos are examples of some of the Arabs who immigrated to the area called Africa hundreds of years before the birth of Christ. So now remember, we got to play with the false chronology, and we got to play with the what does the archaeology say? Like when we see the other videos guys have done about you'll see that the archaeology has them coming in mostly in the Middle Ages. Middle Ages. So Christ's birth, what Christ? Joshua? Was he really born in the year zero that they created, or was it more in the Middle Ages we're talking about? These so-called biblical patriarchs lived. Kind of makes sense if you start really paying attention and following the research we've done. Like, all right. So we go with that. So either way, he's saying They're not even Africans, a lot of these nations. They're the descendants of these people that had come in from these areas. So-called Phoenicians, seafarers. That could include Israelites, so we give them that. The Elamites from Elam, Persians, so-called Persians, right? Like the Shona people, Carthaginian, Sabians, and so on, right? This pre-Islamic immigration of Arabs to the area called Africa has not been given the importance that it deserves from historians. Consequently, many people are unaware of the fact that there were Arabs in the area called Africa long before the Islamic invasion in the 7th century. According to Jawad Ali, some scholars believe that the reason many well-known Arab tribes that immigrated to the area called Africa hundreds of years before the Islamic period were counted as African, in parentheses, reclassified, by scholars of the Torah. Huh. In pre-Islamic times is because of the fact that when these Arabs immigrated to the area called Africa in pre-Islamic times, they formed colonies and governments. It eventually began to be considered indigenous to the area. Huh. What does that sound like, guys? Come on, man. You mean I didn't even know there was such a term as a $5? No, sir. $5 Africa. No. They were considered indigenous to the area because of the lack of knowledge on the part of some scholars at that time. Just as many scholars today lack this knowledge of Arabs being present in the area called Africa since pre-Islamic times. I want to also add here that it's almost done also intentionally by the people who are coming in and rewriting the history. The conquerors write the history, guys. So they started putting themselves there so they can have roots in Africa, as we learned from our Fulani brother the other day, how he was explaining, right? And we know he was saying things we know, because if he's talking about the Hausa people or the Yoruba or the Shona or people, Lebu, nations we already know are coming, and then he knows what he's talking about, right? So basically what he's trying to let you know in this author here is that Arab, ancient Arab, pure Arab people, we're talking about original ancient, they had waves of those people coming in. He's calling all these people Arab, Semitic, Semitic in different ways. Like Joktan's people, the Persian, Assyrians. Assyrians are from Ashur. Ashur is a son of Shem. So these are all Semitic peoples. But I do want to say, and I want to add that these areas most likely were inhabited first by Hamitic people, what they're calling Hamitic, right? Or these type of people. And then the Semitic people started coming in. So how do you get a pure Arab? Do you get a pure Arab from Joktan's people, like his sons mixing with Hamitic people? Is that how? So you get a Semite and a pure Semite and a pure Hamite mix, and now you got, is that a pure Arab? I don't know. I'm just saying. What are you saying? Because that's the combination we're seeing here. But anyways, it says, I say that many scholars lack this knowledge, not all because there are some scholars who are aware of the fact that Arabs have been immigrating to the area called Africa for ages. Dr. Harry Johnston says, there is a great mass of recently collected evidence which goes to show that onwards from about 1,000 years before Christ, the intelligent Arabs of southern and southwestern Arabia had begun to interest themselves in East Africa, more especially for seeking gold. The Semites, we believe, some 2,000 years before Christ, if not earlier, began to exercise a potent influence on the people and country of Egypt. Somewhere about 1,000 years BC, they had conquered the highlands of Abyssinia, Ethiopia, and had obtained a foothold in northern Somaliland. And this was the period, no doubt, at which they commenced their journeys of exploration from the great trading cities of Yemen, right? We know the Yoruba from there, Aden, and the Hadramaut, along the east coast of Africa. They must have had an emporium of Zanzibar, right? They were there too. And possibly they occupied the little island of Mozambique. Okay. In his book, Sudanese Memoirs, Palmer says that the Phoenicians and the Elamites spread at a very early epoch from Asia to Africa. The Hyksos, a Semitic people from Syria, invaded Egypt thousands of years ago and ruled it for 100 years. After they were overthrown, they spread throughout the area called Africa. So this is very important right here. As I was reading this before we went live, if you're not paying attention what it said there, it says that it's telling us about the ancient history of the Semitic people in Egypt and all that, right? We know that was all in the Americas, right? So don't get fooled when they're thinking that they're talking about that area there. But listen to what it says. It says, so after they were overthrown, so after they were overthrown of those areas, they spread throughout the areas called Africa. So how do we know we're not talking about a long migration, from the Americas, from the true ancient Egypt? So after they were thrown out. So we are supposed to believe that's you're talking about the modern Egypt, right? No, this is what I'm saying. We are in advanced uh, historical learnings here. Like we passed that. All right, guys. Like, so after they were overthrown from those areas, a lot of those areas, I heard you talking about ancient America, we're talking about Egypt. According to Dr. Joseph, but again, we know the true world, we know Semitic, we know Canaan is there, so we're not. But again, remember, thousands of years went by, thousands of years of separation, of mixing, amalgamation, assimilation, ethnic cleansing. You can't leave that out either. So if these people, yeah, right, the Semitic people coming out of the Americas, whatever, even Hamitic, right, where Noah's coming from? Where Noah coming from, huh? Where's the gopher tree, guys? Where did they have gopher tree in the world? That's in Florida, okay? Noah built his ship with gopher. So Ham, Japhet, and Shem are his sons, right? They all coming from somewhere, right? Where's the gopher wood in the Americas? So where they probably coming out of? Okay, we're good with that. That's fine. That doesn't mean that thousands of years didn't pass and people mixing and all this other stuff. Okay, so we gotta acknowledge that too. And this is what we're trying to explain. We're trying to get the details. All right. Sorry if I keep pausing, guys. I just want to be able to explain things because I have a lot of new people, a lot of people that don't sit and watch the old videos. Okay. So after they were overthrown, he's saying a lot of these Semitic people ended up in Africa. Okay. According to Dr. Joseph J. Williams, the author of Hebrewism in West Africa, Dr. Carl Peters, the founder of let's see, of what was known as German East Africa, says all over the district South Africa, we shall find many ruins of ancient gold mining era and remnants of the Punic Carthaginian Baal Asherah worship partly in existence up to the present day. Baal and Asherah, Astarte, were ancient gods worshipped by the Phoenicians and other Semites. See, they're saying Phoenicians, like that's Assyrian stuff, guys. The Assyrians. See, this author's not hasn't even mentioned Assyrians, so I think he's using Phoenicians like include Assyrians, Babylonians, not just seafaring peoples. Okay, so have that in mind. That's the real truth, that after the fall of the Assyrian Empire, a lot of these people ended up in Africa. They migrated. That's what we read and learned, especially with the Shona, a video and the other one. Yeah, so Rose of Mafa, that's a whole different topic. No, we're having a specific discussion today. Don't worry, we'll get to that. All right, we'll get to that. It was brought by the Europeans, not by so-called Africans, because that is a false story. We already exposed the whole West African slave trade to America. Okay, if you feel a certain way about that, it's because you're uninformed. You haven't been here in the last 8 years. I'm not picking on anybody. I'm just saying in general. So we're not gonna explain anything that's off topic right now. Don't come here asking me, right? Because just because we're live, this ain't a Q&A right now. We're talking about specific things right now. Thank you. So, Dr. Williams said, when speaking of Macomb and Manicaland, which are in the southeastern part of Rhodesia, Zimbabwe, and the southwestern part of Mozambique, under any circumstances, we have here absolutely ancient Semitic religious ideas before us, okay? Yeah, some people just don't have like the the discipline, got to time them out like little kids and stuff. It's all good. So we got these migrations, right? Coming into Macombi and Manicaland. That's in Rhodesia, Zimbabwe, right? Didn't we have a video on the Shona, right? Check out my first video, right? Nations of the World, Shona people, origins in Persia, Great Zimbabwe. All right. Don't be going off topic. We're talking about specific things right now. Under any circumstances, we have here absolutely ancient Semitic religious ideas before us. The sun god is still today the center of worship and the hail sacrifices, and in his honor, the perpetual fire burns in the house of Kuara, Kwate. He says further, Manicaland is full of relics of the ancient Semitic era. Throughout Manicaland, one finds ancient Phoenician gravestones. When speaking of the Zambezi River, which runs through Mozambique, he says this river was apparently a highway for the most ancient Semitic migrations to South Africa. These Semites came from South Arabia and worshiped Baal and Ashtaroth, Astarte. These we can regard as established facts, all right? Babylonians, Assyrians, so-called Assyrians, so-called Babylonians, right? Not Hebrews, not so-called Hebrews or Israelites. Semite don't mean Hebrew specifically always, and it doesn't definitely always mean Israelite specifically either. Overstand. Get rid of personal biases. Overstand who you really are. It's okay. Everybody want to be the good guy. So-called good guy. Raymond Dart says in his lecture entitled Some Semitic Influences in Hottentot Culture. That before 700 BC, the southwestern Arabians had established themselves up and down the coast between Cape Guardafui in Somalia and Dar es Salaam in Tanzania, and that 800 years later, they were still in authority in the Bagamoyo in Tanzania and Dar es Salaam country. All right. So very important. I'm glad he brought up the Hottentot or Khoisan bush people, right? The Khoisan people. When we talk about indigenous people of Africa, right? We're talking about, and this is what I was reading in the book, and I forgot which one we read it in a video. The oldest groups, according to archaeology, right, and whatever they're, and then they got they got names for these people like Nok and other ones, like they got different names, but we got the Pygmies, we got the Khoisan, and Berbers. Believe it or not, Berbers. These are the oldest people in Africa. Everybody else came much later. Okay. Dr. Joseph William also says near Dakar and near St. Louis, Senegal, were Carthaginian colonies in times of old. In his book Conquest of Civilizations, Professor Breasted states that Carthaginian settlements extended southward along the Atlantic coast of Africa to the edge of the Sahara. All right. Yeah, we've been going over to Africa from ancient America, the true. We've been, yeah. He also believes that Hanno, the famous Phoenician navigator and explorer who lived around 500 BC, explored the coast of Africa as far as Guinea. Dr. Williams supports Ferdinand Ossendowski's view that the Yola and Baga tribes of Guinea, listen, are descendants of these Carthaginians. By the way, these Yola and Baga tribes are amongst the tribes that make up the so-called African Americans. So he's saying, he kind of seeing it in reverse there, bro. Definitely in reverse, man. If they're Carthaginians, they possibly might be related to ancient America, right? But when we talk about ancient Carthaginians going there, settling in West Africa, right? We talking about hundreds or thousands of years going by. Is it still the same people? They're not mixed with other people, All right, I get it. But again, he's still seen in reverse because he's trying to include the West African slave trade. That's why he's saying this is the so-called African Americans. Yeah, right. You're seen in reverse. We're talking about Carthaginians. Yeah, the true Holy Land. Guys. So one of the first capital of Costa Rica was Cartago. That means Carthage, right? Also, we have Cartagena, right? We have Cartagena that's in Colombia. I believe that's the original Carthage. We should soon prove it one day. But Carthage, And it's the Carthaginians and their relation with so-called Atlantis and the Greeks that were coming to Atlantis is heavy. So there's a lot of things to correlate that, right? Like they even called when the Spanish were here, that part of the world, the Colombia and Ecuador, no, they called it the Cartagena, Carthage of the Indians, of the Indies. They call it Carthage of the Indies, literally. Okay, Cartagena is Carthage. Okay, you guys understand? Like I'm not just, you're gonna see, like when I have a thought, it's because I'm trying to make a logical uh, hypothesis based on the research we've done and what we know already. Okay, either way, be seen in reverse. It's still the point of this is that a lot of nations of Africa are not indigenous to Africa. So if the Yola and Baga have Carthaginian or Semitic, yeah, why not? Coming from another part of the world, not indigenous to Africa. And who they mixing with now? Are they mixing with these Arab, Muslim, Persian people coming in, right? So now that's a whole different thing now, right? No longer they're the same as the ancient Carthaginians. Okay, let's go. In its account of the immigration of the Tuba to the area called Africa, many years ago, Palmer's Sudanese memoirs mentions the fact that some extinct Arabs, Arab el Baida, that's why they called extinct Arabs, immigrated to this area, Africa, at some time in the remote past. The account runs as follows. So just like the Maya went extinct, right? Just like a lot of Indians went extinct, right? But it's you. You just got reclassified. Oh, you mean the people who got reclassified as Africans, but they were Arabs, right? They call them extinct Arabs now. The account runs as follows. Says it was Tuba, Umar the Himyarite, all right? The Yamanite. So Himyarite coming from Joktan, right? Coming from Jarub. So it was Joktan, then Jarub, and then from Jarub came the Himyarites and the Yoruba, all right? Check out my Yoruba video from yesterday, the other day. And then we got the Yamanite, son of Malik, who got lost and went apart when they left Yaman or Yemen and came to Medina, the glorious, where his people multiplied till they reached 1,470 souls of the Tuba, Ul, Awal, Al Himyariyu, right? Counting men and women after the death of Umar the Himyarite, the Yemenite, his people migrated to the west and crossed the Great Sea, the Red Sea. They and their learned men of the Banu Adam, the learned Abdullah, and his sons, and Ibrahim, and those who followed them. They crossed the Great Sea and settled on the African coast for many years. There joined them the people of Baderi or Badi. When they left the region, they all scattered by reason of the death of their leader Abdul Rahman ibn Abir im Ahmad im Hussein im Malik ibn Umar the Himyarite, the Yamanite. I want to point out something, guys, very important here, in case you guys think this guy's just talking and writing a book. He does have footnotes, right? He has sources. He's actually, and I went to go check them. They are historical sources. He's quoting the people. He's quoting the traditional historical writings. Okay? Go verify if you want to verify. Just want to make sure you guys understand. It says, two of the sons of Abdul Rahman, called Ibrahim and Abdullahi, led their father's people to the west. Thus the Beni Mualim Adam brought their people to the city of Naga Sargamu in Borno, Nigeria. They settled at 3 places before they reached Naga Sargamu. Now that word, right, Naga? They found on their arrival a great people called Shao Shao of the Benu Shum of the race of Ad, or as some say, Talmud, or remnants of them. Talmud, huh? The Talmud, look at that. Talmud, taught, Talmud, taught, Talmud, what? Whom they slew and drove west and south till they conquered them all by reason of their prayers and invocations. The Baderi or Badi, mentioned in this account originally from Badar in Arabia. All right, So look at all this. So we haven't even talked about that. We're gonna prove that. We're gonna go to his sources and get more sources. We're gonna have a video on all this stuff, right? It's from Arabia. Badr is a village in the southwestern part of Medina. According to another account, they are Arab nomads who are descendants of the people of Sodom, ancient Palestine, and many of them are from Hadramut in the Yemen. All right, the Badri people, future video. What are we seeing? The Badri people, body. Yep. Bajiri. This what it? Badiri. No, that's not it. Badari. Okay, here's where it is. See? This part of Africa. Badari. Coming in from Arabia. Upper Egypt. Also, it's in Egypt, so it's probably a Badari in Africa too. We shall look into it. These are only a few examples of many cases of Arab immigration to the area called Africa long before the Islamic period. So he's like, these are just some examples, like there's a bunch of them. Islamic immigration. From the beginning of the Islamic period, the Arabs continued their immigration to the area called Africa. In fact, this was the first area that the Muslims immigrated to. They immigrated there in order to seek refuge from the persecution that they faced in Arabia. In the early days of Islam, when the Muslims were few and weak, the Prophet Muhammad told the Muslims to immigrate to Ethiopia. What Ethiopia? The three Ethiopias, all right, that's one of them. This shows how familiar the Arabs were at that time with the area which is now called Africa. They immigrated to the area called Africa in groups and individually. Arabs immigrated to the area called Africa during the Islamic period for various reasons. Some immigrated to seek refuge from the unbelievers. Some immigrated for political reasons. Some immigrated to spread the religion of Islam. Some immigrated for financial reasons, grazing of cattle, etc. Grazing of cattle. Does that include the Fulani? So remember the three indigenous groups that are oldest, right? Everybody else came later. Whatever the reasons were, the Arabs immigrated to the area called Africa in very large numbers from the very early days of Islam to the coming of the European colonists, who then set up borders and made immigration to the area called Africa more difficult. They did not, however, put an end to it. Again, the sources are here, guys. I just want you to see. We got sources for days. For days. El Ghanimi says the nomadic Arab tribes began their movement in tremendous numbers towards the African continent. From the middle of the 1st century, the Islamic calendar. From the 1st century of the Islamic calendar. Immediately after the Muslims conquered Egypt in the 7th century, these Arabs poured forth in large numbers into Africa. That's not the only time they poured. They kept pouring all the way up to the 1800s, guys. This immigration continued from the time of the Arab conquest in the 1st century of the Islamic calendar, 7th century AD, until the 5th century of the Islamic calendar, 11th century AD. Doesn't that coincide with the so-called Moors going into Europe? Oh, man. It's a whole other topic we're going to get into, right? Well, we shall. Because who are the Almoravids, right? Remember what we learned? All right, so let's just keep going. Neville Chittick says in his paper entitled Kilwa and the Arab Settlement, an Omani source gives an account of an emigration led by members of the Yulandi family at the end of the 7th century AD. Descendants of this family are mentioned as resident in Mombasa in Kenya by the Kitab al-Sanuj, all right, in Kenya. You see how many, we're going to start breaking this down, right? Future videos, right? The Yulandi is a famous Arab tribe found in Oman. Chitik says further, recent surveys and excavations in East Africa, however, are beginning to shed more light on the period between AD 1300, right? The Middle Ages, and to suggest that there may be more substance in the traditions of immigration from the Arab homelands in the first centuries of Islam than has hitherto been thought to be the case. All right, this has been downplayed. It has been sugar-coated. We're talking about millions and millions of people. Yeah, going into Africa, not out of. El Ghanemi quotes the famous 11th century historian geographer Abdallah el-Bekri as saying, remnants of the Umayyads, clan of Quraysh, who are descendants of Umayyah ibn Ab Shams, who escaped from the Abbasis, descendants of Abbas ibn Ab el-Muttalib, the uncle of the Prophet Muhammad, immigrated to the southeastern region of Lake Chad, okay? And settled there because they found the area agreeable, being far away from the danger of the Abbasis. That's why a lot of these people ended up in Lake Chad. And that's where they try to start their creation stories and their origin. That's what these Pan-African scholars try to do and hijack the history. This happened in the year 750 AD. So that's probably the first wave, right? So listen to him, right? First wave right before like the Middle Ages, so-called beginning of history. Besides these Umayyads, El Gharabi speaks of a city in West Africa, which was composed of a group of Arabs who were remnants of troops that the Umayyad caliphs had sent to West Africa. The Sudanese memoirs mentions tribes in Wadi Chad that are descendants from Yazid ibn Muawiyah, who was from Umayyah ibn Abd Shams. By the way, Wadi, like Lake Chad, is recorded as being one of the places that the so-called Black Americans were taken to America from. And he continues with the whole false African slave trade story. That's the hijack, guys. That's what I'm saying, man. That's the hijack. He got a lot of drop, but he don't got a source for that one. Where's the source for that one, man? There's no quote, but he got a source for this. You see? So as I have shown, Arab migration from the Arabian Peninsula to the area called Africa has taken place since the earliest of times. Throughout the ages, Arabs migrated in very large numbers from all parts of the Arabian Peninsula to all parts of the area called Africa. Certainly, the descendants of these Arabs are to be found today in the area called Africa. All right. Now remember, don't picture what you think of Arab looking today only. Like we're talking about straight West African looking so-called black folks. Like, you know, the typical look that you got in your mind right now when you say West African. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about because we all got it. We all got that stereotype. That was ingrained into us. And play it off. You know what I'm talking about. That look. That's that pure Arab look. That's what I'm trying to explain to you. So look, the misconception of the appearance of a pure Arab, huh? So he goes into it, you know, with the complexion, and most people today do not believe that the original Arabs were a dark-skinned people. They believe that the Arabs had a complexion no darker than that of a well-tanned Mediterranean person, for example. They also believe that they had lank hair and prominent hooked noses. This misconception becomes apparent when you see films that are supposed to depict the Arabs of the past. The pure Arabs in these films are invariably shown with fair skin and lank hair. Anyone shown as dark skin is an African or a slave. You see? So, where does this sound familiar, guys? Don't they do this in America? Same thing, right? Same thing, because we keep falling for that race thing that was created. We keep falling for those misconceptions, stereotypes, generalizations. We keep basing everything off looks, and that's wrong. Today, especially. So anybody that was dark skinned is an African, right? That's what they don't they do that here? Or a slave, right? Didn't they do that to your ancestors here in America? Admiral Pooley. Hold on, what's going on in the chat? All right, we're not here to debate. Guys, moderators, what's up, man? Can you guys get Mapuli while we out of here? What's up, moderators? They're saying here, we're not here to debate. Like, we're reading sources. We're not here to debate clowns on the chat with no sources and all salty and upset at this truth because they probably from these same people we're talking about. If you can, a real historian doesn't, a real historian is not biased. A real historian doesn't just believe. A real historian researches and verifies what people are telling them, tries to prove it wrong through primary sources, archaeology, anthropology, ethnology, philology. All right, we're not here for debate and get these guys. If you see anybody coming in here to troll and try to debate anybody, and also anybody that starts arguing with them, starts arguing. No, so don't, yeah, as many channels as they create, delete them all before we continue. I need to make sure. Delete them all, hide them all. We're not here for that right now. We're in a different era. We're not here to entertain you guys. Yeah, we're not here for that. We're in a different time where we do our own research and we are correcting the false narratives that were indoctrinated into us. Break the spell. This ain't personal. Have some respect. Go do your own channel and show your sources, right? Without disrespecting anybody, without being all childish. Be a man, be a real person, be a real scholar. Don't be a clown on somebody's YouTube channel, a live chat. Don't be a clown. Don't come troll and be childish. Sorry I had to interrupt, guys, the reading. Also, guys, don't go back and forth with these people. Politely say, hey, that's off topic. We already debunked that. Try to listen. If they continue, then get them out of here, especially if they're disrespectful. Talking about, you don't know this, you don't know that. We're not here for that. And why am I doing this right now? I know a lot of people like, yo, just continue reading. No, man, this is important. People need to hear this. People need to hear it like this. That doesn't work anymore. Coming to troll and trying to debate, that doesn't work. That just makes you look like a clown now, especially to inform people who know real history. You don't even understand how much you're making yourself look like a fool. I'm trying to help you, not hurt you. But I know truth hurts. I get it. It is emotional. It's emotional for all of us. But that doesn't mean your people weren't great. That doesn't mean still they didn't do great things or whatever, even if they invaded or colonized other people. There's a whole history and culture to your people. Be proud of that. But know the details and stop generalizing and try to come here with no sources and research telling us who are doing the research, who have the sources, that we're wrong. That's just silly. Okay, let's keep going, guys. Thank you. I think we good. We got a little bit of the hijack out. We took a little break. All right. I get it, guys. I get you want to go at them too, guys, but it becomes a waste of time, and then you start losing attention, and then it just becomes a debating thing in the chat. Nobody's paying attention, right? So we're talking about misconception, right? Yeah, we already know that if you were in Americas or anywhere in the world, as you guys can see here, if you were dark skinned, you're either supposed to be an African or a slave. And that's the mentality these people are still coming with that are trying to debate us. This misconception becomes even more apparent when you hear writers like Harry H. Johnston say in his book, A History of the Colonization of Africa by Alien Races, that the Negro, in parentheses, is woolly-haired and that Semite is straight-haired. You see, a generalization like that is so messed up. So he's pointing out, look, there's even hijack in anthropological books. We know this. That's why we know You gotta have discernment. You gotta have wisdom to be able to discern the information, the hijack from the truth. It's not biased, it's not personal. You just gotta be real with yourself. So we know that Negro people have all types of hair, right? And we know also that Semitic people don't just have straight hair. That's a that's totally false. Get that out your head. So good thing I have this book right here, and I haven't read it. And I was gonna read it in this series. We still probably will to see what he's saying, because look at the title: "The History of Colonization of Africa by Alien Races from Outside into Africa." Right? But then he's saying this whole hijack. So we got to dodge the hijack probably a lot in that book. Either way, it says, or when you hear an Arab writer like Muhammad Suleiman El Tayyib say that the Arabs in the area called Africa got a darker complexion than the original complexion when they entered Africa, dodge the hijack. He's basically saying, hey, you got to dodge the hijack. This misconception also becomes apparent when you observe the fact that when most people today see an Arab who is dark skinned, they automatically assume that she is of mixed origin because of the prevalence of this fallacy. Many dark Arabs themselves now believe that they are dark as a result of intermixture with Africans. Wow. Just like so-called Black American Indians, right? A lot of folks out there who know they're Indians, what do they think? They think they're only Indians because they intermix, or they're black because they intermix with African slaves. Oh, I'm dark because I have some slaves in me, but I'm Indian. Same thing, man. Same thing. Look at That's what I'm saying, guys. What is the theme of today? Remember, if we don't learn from history, we're doomed to repeat it. All you guys, anybody want to stay ignorant and want to keep going with the false narratives and all this stuff, taking this personal, well, you're doomed to repeat it. You're never gonna advance. Your people's always gonna be in darkness. Things are gonna keep happening to you. Yeah, Renee, that's true, Renee. They're just trying to say that these same people are the ones that got taken to America. That's not true. All right, now you're reaching, Tariq. But hey, we still love the book, man. But now you're reaching a little bit with that. You don't got to prove of that. Show me the shit manifest. Because you're good at finding sources, Tariq, but show me the shit manifest. Leaving West Africa, going to America, right? The millions, right? The millions, not just one or two, the millions. Okay. It's all good though. We still respect your work on this part right here that you're very knowledgeable on. We give you your props on that. So I've interviewed many dark-skinned Arabs who expressed this belief to me. I once interviewed an Arab from the Udafa, descendants of the Prophet of Liberia, who said that he didn't believe that he is an Arab because he doesn't look like the Arabs that he sees on television. You guys see that? Wow. That's like a lot of Pan-African Americans. What you mean, man? Look at me. I'm African, man. I don't look like an Indian. What you talking about, man? I don't look like an Indian. Look at me. I'm an African. It's the same thing. So this guy who's an actual descendant, according to his genealogy from Muhammad, he's saying, but I don't even think Americans look at me. I don't look like an Arab. Wow. Wow. Same thing, right? So now he goes on to say, why is there misconception? Why does it exist? So he gives a lot of reasons. So this part we're kind of gonna get to a specific parts because we go, these kind of things like we could understand. And if you get the book, read the whole book, right? So he goes over it, says the misunderstanding of Arabic terms is one way, right? And he explains that, right? And a little paragraph, as you guys see here, you can pause it. Then he says films is another way, or Hollywood, right? Right? Got to dodge the Hollywood. We know that. We know Hollywood films, the media, right? They like to portray a certain Arab look in. That's like they like to portray a certain Indian look, right? It's the same thing, guys. Then he's okay, sorry. Again, skip. Then on this side, we got still the film, history books, right? So then so-called history books, another reason for the misconception of the appearance of the original Arabs because of the false information found in the history books that the European colonists used in the school systems in the Arab Islamic world that they colonized. It's just like in what happened in the Americas, guys. Like you see, again, and if we don't learn from history, we're gonna keep repeating. It's gonna keep happening. They just keep resetting. Get it? They just keep resetting, keep rewriting world fairs, right? It's all connected. And now this is the one I wanted to read. He says, the main reason, pan-Africanism. This is why there's a big misconception. Why? Because of pan-Africanism. Another cause of the misunderstanding of the true appearance of the original Arabs is the spread of pan-Africanism, which took place after the independence of the so-called African countries, meaning it's a very recent thing. After the people in these countries were totally brainwashed by the colonizers, they developed new ideas about themselves and their relation to the Arabs. The European colonizers convinced them to reject their traditions of Arab origin and to separate themselves from the Arab world. Okay. Yeah, you're not an Indian, you're an African slave, right? What's the difference, guys? Listen, man. What European colonizers? See, don't think so-called white. See, this is what I'm saying. Don't think so-called white. Black folks too. Remember, they rewrite the history to fit them. They convinced them to believe what their fathers and grandfathers had told them about their being Arabs and to believe what they had to say about their origin. Look, they told them, don't believe your grandparents, man. You're not Indian. Don't believe your grandparents. You're from Africa, man. They did the same to the Arab people that ended up in Africa and now are Africans today. They did the exact same thing. We don't learn from history, we're gonna repeat it. It worked. It worked at that time and period. It worked over there in Africa. They said, you know what? Let's do it in America. It worked there. We can do it over there. We're just gonna tell the Indians the same thing. Why not? It worked over here. We're gonna do it over there too. We can do it all over the world. You guys paying attention? Like, activate. Wake up. Learn history, or you're doomed to repeat it. I know why you care about the past, Kurimeo. Why you care about the past, man? Everything that happened in the past is what led us to our situations today, guys. We must learn and grow from that. Doesn't mean to live in the past. It means to know thyself really what has happened. So that's right. They convinced them to call their fathers and grandfathers liars and to believe them and the very people who say that Ariel Sharon is a Hebrew. It's funny, man, because yo, props to the author, right? But you're doing the same thing when you're trying to make the Americans Africans. You're doing the exact same thing. When when their grandparents and their genealogy tells them they were Indians and actual Black Europeans, not Africans. Just like you're saying, Ariel Sharon is not a Israelite, right? We know he's a Cheza. Well, Americans are not specifically African either. The European colonizers taught them, and the colonizer controlled school systems and missionaries that the Arabs are white, that they are black, and that there is no relation between the two. Wow. I mean, this is a script, guys. You guys see, this is a plan put in motion everywhere. It's a script. They follow. It's a script they follow. Hey, follow this. You won't go wrong. Right? It is crazy not to believe your own people, your own grandfathers telling you, yo, I'm Huetar Chorotega, man. Like my grandfather, yeah, well, I'm Indian. He didn't know what tribe because there was already so many disconnected from their culture because of everything that happened, the indentured slavery, all that. But he knew and he couldn't hide it. He can't hide it, but he knew. And it's like he's telling me, it's like me saying, nah, man, my grandfather's a liar, man. My grandfather's a liar, man. Like, imagine that, like, and start just believing that we are 99% Spaniard. That's what they told us growing up in Costa Rica. Everybody, not just me. Everybody. Just like they told these Arabs that they're probably 99% from Africa. You're 1% Arab, you know, when they are the pure Arabs. Al-Arib Arab. So how do you say that? Before the arrival of the Europeans and the spread of Pan-Africanism, okay, most of the area now called West Africa was Arab and a part of the Arab world. All right. The people spoke Arabic and said that they were of Arab origin. Before the whole hijack, oh, we from here. No, I'm from here. My grandma's from Choctaw. My grandma was like before the Pan-African, right? And the whole hijack of European, right? Oh, we were Arabs. They found alongside the Arabs from other parts of the Arab world and traveled to and from the different parts of the Arab world. Also, Arabs from different parts of the Arab world traveled to and from this area. There was no Guinea. Listen, there was no Guinea, Gambia, Mauritania, Senegal, Nigeria, Chad, Sudan, and Saudi Arabia, for example. There was none of that. Body bag for the illusion. Yo, shout out to Drop. Oh, I know that hurt a lot of people right there, bro. It's okay. Breathe. Wow. There were different tribes, and these tribes traveled freely to all parts of the Arab world. Listen, and settled where they pleased, not these fake boundaries. You will find that some of the same tribes are found in many of the different countries that you have today. For example, you will find the Bragna and Trarza Arabs in both Senegal and Mauritania, right? That's very far, right? Because in the past, there were no borders between the places now bearing these names. It was one area. You will find the Kunta Arabs in the areas called Mali, Mauritania, Senegal, Gambia, and Guinea today because before the naming of these areas and the placing of artificial borders, they were one and the same. You will find that the Fulani are found all across that area called Africa, right? Corroborating with the Fulani brother, what he was saying about his people, right? All across the area called Africa and in the area called Saudi Arabia. That too, something he didn't mention. In modern day Sudan, for example, you will find whole towns settled by them. In 1903, when the Fulani Sultanate in the area now called Nigeria was defeated while fighting a holy war against the English colonists, the Fulani Sultan El Tahir First English, it was their obligation to perform the Hijrah, Islamic migration. So he, along with throngs of his followers, immigrated to modern-day Sudan and settled in a place called Mayarno. The descendants of these people are there until today, okay? Wow. So from Nigeria, they went over there, huh? When Muhammad Ahmed al-Mahdi, the famous Mahdi of modern-day Sudan, was fighting his holy war, people in the area called Nigeria went to fight alongside him. In fact, the Mahdi's Caliph Abdullah el-Taishi is a descendant of a person from the area called Nigeria. There are many pure Arab tribes living in the western part of modern-day Sudan that have branches in Chad, Nigeria, and Cameroon. Cameroon, all right? These tribes have the same name, look the same, and speak the same dialect of Arabic. If it talks like a dog, walks like a dog, looks like a dog, has the same dialect like a dog, what do you guys think? Once I was speaking to Shua, Arab from Nigeria or Nigeria, I don't know if that's a typo, and from his dialect of Arabic, I was sure that he was Sudanese, but not he was Nigerian. So Nigeria is what they meant, I guess. Also, I was once in the desert town of Kufra in Libya, and I saw that people there look like Sudanese, dressed like the Sudanese, and speak the same dialect of Arabic as the Sudanese. However, as I said, when the European colonists entered the area called West Africa, they convinced many of the people to reject their Arab origin and to separate themselves from the Arab world. So today, Libya and Sudan are Arab countries, while Chad and Nigeria are not, despite the fact that they are all the same people and speak the same dialect of Arabic. You see that discrepancy? The hijack. Oh, you're not the same, you know. Oh, those are Arabs. You guys are Africans, you know. Well, now they're all Africans, right? Because they were born, they're native Africans, right? Like you say, Native American. Anybody born in America is a Native American, right? So anybody born in Africa is a Native African, but that doesn't mean they were always from, you know. Mohammed Suleiman El Tayyib says in his book, Mosul Atil Kabail El Arab, many Arab tribes penetrated deeply into the southern regions of so-called Africa until they reached the bush areas. They mixed with the Negroes. Ha! Huh. So these, look, black, these are Negro people too, right? They went into Africa, mixed with the Negroes. Who they calling the Negroes? The ones that were already there, maybe Semites or Khoisan people, right? Maybe. Though marriage and though through living in proximity to them. They became distant from the Arabs and their complexion became darker than their original complexion. So this is, let me see, there was no Guinea. For example, you will find, okay, Barker and Tarsa, southern regions until they reached it, they mixed with the Negroes. Okay. The passage of time together with the conniving of the colonizers caused these people to become more and more distant from the Arabs. They, the colonizers, separated these people from their Arab origin and from the Arab culture. This is how they forgot their origin and became Negroes. Oh, you mean like the American Indians forgot, a lot of them forgot their culture and became Negroes, or they forgot their origin. Now they're just black. Now they're just a color, crayon color. These people developed a new origin. And now they got a whole new origin. I'm from the Akana Chanti. I'm from the Igbo tribe. Yeah, everybody's from all these tribes, but they got no proof of it, right? New origin and a new language, right? That's like the DNA test, a new origin. Now you got a new origin, and now you got a new language because you didn't speak English always, right? Your ancestors didn't speak English and all that, and the colonizers made this new origin and language their true origin and language. This is why the new generation have no knowledge of their true origin. Oh, so similar to the Americas, right? They only know what the colonizers taught them in their publications, Orientalist books, and missionary schools, which have filled Africa for more than 2 centuries. They did it in Africa, and then they went and did it in the Americas. So Senegal, which gets its name from the Sanhaya, the famous Himyarite Arab tribe, began to abandon its Arabism. Right? Remember, Himyarite Arab tribe coming from Joktan or Jarub, the son of Joktan. I'm sorry, Jarub, the son of, yeah, the son of Joktan. Yeah, my fault. Yeah. So the Himyarites, right? It also began to abandon its Arabic language, which was until 1910 the official language of the country. The same is true for Guinea, Ghana, Ivory Coast, Burkina Faso, right? Mali, Niger, Benin, Nigeria, and other countries. Mohammed Suleiman El Tayyib has knowledge of the fact that the ancestors of the so-called Black Americans were Arab origin. Oh yeah, right. Yeah, he's a Pan-African a little bit though. Oh, he's giving drop, but now he's trying to. Yeah, you got no sources for that. However, he doesn't seem to have knowledge of the appearance of the original Arabs. He knows that, but he don't know the Arabs were black, like you're saying, and you got all this proof. When speaking of the Arabs who spread to the area now called Africa, he says that their complexion became darker. Uh, I'm certain that after reading this book, he'll understand that the complexion of these people is no darker than the complexion of their Arab ancestors. As Mohammed Suleiman El Tayyib says, the country Senegal gets its name from the Himyarite Arab tribe of Samhaya. So this author has the drop, right, Mohammed Suleiman, but he's still thinking of a certain type of look when he's saying Arab. He's still thinking, oh, they came and they mixed with Negroes, and now they're black. So he's, even though he's telling you the truth where they came from, he thinks now they're just a mixed people, amalgamated people, and that's why they're just. But he's right about. Listen, he's saying that the country Senegal, right? Senegal is literally a Himyarite name for the tribe of Samhaya, to be exact. So that's a Joktanite, right? From Jarubite, right? Jarubite tribe coming out of Joktan. To be exact, the country Senegal gets its name from the branch of Sanghaya called Senegal. Look, Senegal. When the French entered the area, they corrupted the pronunciation of Senegal and began calling it people Senegal. The European colonizers also taught the people in the so-called African countries that the Arabs captured their people and sold them into slavery, when in reality it was the non-Muslim Africans, who generally raided their Arab Muslim neighbors and sold them to the Europeans on the coast. All right, you're missing a lot of context with these Arab slave wars. You guys missing a lot of context. Mervyn Hiskett says in The Development of Islam in West African, the slave trade was by no means an exclusively Muslim affair, as one might suppose from the accounts of certain Christian missionary and humanitarian commentators of the 19th and early 20th centuries, that's the 1800s and 1900s AD. On the contrary, it was largely conducted by coastal non-Muslim Africans and their European partners. Yes, in general, it was the non-Muslims in the area who worked with the European Christians and captured the Arab Muslims, whom these European Christians were out to get revenge on. So these European Christians remembered the many battles they had fought against the Arab Muslims. They remembered the Battle of Salaka in Spain, where the Arab Muslims, under the control of Yusuf ibn Tashfim, defeated them and killed their king. They remembered that many of these Arab Muslims were from the area now called Senegal. They remembered, in fact, that the very Arab Muslim army that conquered Spain, Al-Murabitin, Al-Moravids came from this area now called Senegal. Ha! There you go. And that's it. And who's these Arabs from Senegal? They coming from Arabia. So who's these Moors going into? I'm a Moor. So now you a Moor still? Are you from Morocco? Al-Moravids, your original Moors, who are coming from Arabia, right? Coming from Arabia, from the Sanghaja people, the Senegal, your Almoravids, all right? Pay attention, we're gonna get, these are future videos. Yeah, let's get specific and detailed. No generalizations. This is what I'm saying. Everybody generalizing. We all this, we all that. When anybody says we all this, then I know you don't know history. All right. The Almoravids came from the same people, the Senegal, of the Sanghaja tribe. Because they were coming from Senegal, and that's what those people were. And probably other Arabs that eventually went to Senegal. We're going to get the doll drop, all right? Now, getting back to what I was saying, going back to the info, as a result of being indoctrinated with the aforementioned false information from a very early age, right? The people in the area called Africa began to separate themselves from the Arab world. Same thing happened with the people in the America. They began to separate themselves from the American indigenous world. They then began to call themselves Africans, just like the people of the Americas, and became strong proponents of pan-Africanism. Again, just like the Americans. The Pan-African movement was spearheaded by the Arabs who were enslaved and taken to America. Oh, that's the hijack. But that makes a lot of sense. You sure it was the Arabs that were taken from Africa or the black Europeans who were enslaved and taken to America? Huh? You're a so-called African Methodist Church and African Hall, Prince Hall, what Africa? That's a, now we know that's a Roman word. So he's saying in America, these people eventually started the Pan-African movement. We got to dodge the hijack. This movement played a great part in changing people's concept of what an Arab is, but we know that Pan-Africanism did do that. It did a lot of damage for many years. It's still doing it right now, but we breaking through. We're breaking out of that. I say we all. I was there. Me, I was there. Heavy Pan-Africanist, way back in the day, because I thought that's what the truth was. Till I kept researching. That's what they told us growing up. That's what he's saying. We got indoctrinated. We got indoctrinated. As a result of being targeted and oppressed because of their dark complexion and being indoctrinated with false information, most of the dark-skinned Arabs in the area called Africa and those, don't it sound like we're reading about the Americans and those captured and taken, right? We're talking about American Indians, if in the case, right? Began to defend the terms that were used to describe them as black or African, right? Because of what? Why? How did that happen? Because they got targeted. You got targeted. All right? You got targeted. You got oppressed because of your complaint. You got disfranchised based on color and being indoctrinated with false information all these years. All you dark-skinned Indians. All you dark-skinned Indians, because he's adding hijack. All you dark-skinned Indians who were enslaved or reclassified in America began to defend the terms. Listen, you're still doing it. You defend the terms that were used to describe you as a hijack, which is black or African. You still defend those terms. Even though these terms were given to them by their oppressors. Yo, man, why you still calling yourself a crayon color, man? And they still want to debate, come here and debate, man. Like, man. Before the coming of the Europeans, these people didn't call themselves blacks or Africans. What people? American people, huh? Colored folks, so-called black folks of America didn't call themselves blacks or Africans. Yeah, that's true. However, after the Europeans did what they did, these people began to call themselves Africans, just like the Arabs, and became staunch supporters of Pan-Africanism. Now they all Pan-Africans. This Pan-African movement was in reality a protest against the abuse that the Europeans targeted against the Arabs of color. These Arabs of color separated themselves from their light-skinned Arab brothers and became known worldwide as Black Africans. Oh man, guys, this sounds just like what happened in the Americas. Now, oh, he ain't, nah, he's light-skinned, he ain't related to me. I'm black. Of course, he man. So he says another way of misconception is the Arab League. Still another cause of the worldwide misconception of what an Arab is and what the appearance of the original Arabs was is the formation of the Arab League. Most people mistakenly believe that only those who are citizens of countries that are members of the Arab League are Arabs, because most of the countries that have decided to become members of the Arab League are those countries in which the major portion of the population no longer have their original dark complexion. Oh, oh. Also, you get to be a part of the Arab League because, yeah, you're not dark. Yeah, so, okay, welcome aboard. Most people naturally believe that the true appearance of the Arabs is like that of the citizens of most Arab League nations. I've interviewed many people who, when asked what they thought the true complexion of the Arab was, responded like those you see on the news. Yeah, like, like the ones I see, the insurgents, the insurgents that, over there, Like Cat Williams said, I don't know no insurgent. It must be understood that not being a member of the Arab League does not automatically make a country non-Arab. There are many countries that are not members of the Arab League, but are at the same time just as Arab as any country that is a member. Take the case for the country of Comoros, for example. Weren't these people Arabs long before they became members of the Arab League in September 1993? Or did they become Arabs overnight? Surely the Comorans Camerons were just as Arab when they were not members of the Arab League, as they are now as members. These are many other countries now, like the Comoros was before it joined the Arab League in 1993. Therefore, people must stop limiting their search for Arabs to Arab League members. Let's keep reading, shall we? It says here, insight into what started the European aversion toward people of color. When Roland sees the unbelieving race, the Arabs, those hordes and hordes blacker than the blackest ink, no shred of white on them except their teeth, from the Song of Roland, 8th century, okay? That's the 700s, all right? Nobody's blackwashing either. The European colonizers were the ones who brought the concept that people of color were inferior. They brought the idea that dark-skinned people were meant to be slaves and that being a slave and being dark-skinned were synonymous. So I'm going to disagree a little bit on that. You know, that's more towards the late 1800s, 1900s. Remember, the original Europeans included black folks. They're not going to say, "Oh, I'm dark. I'm inferior to my." They weren't saying that about themselves. This happened a lot later, but these black Europeans were disfranchising the Indian dark skin, the black Indians. They were mixing with them too. But yeah, it's true. Dark skin literally did become synonymous, right, with slave or African. One might ask, why is that the European colonizers entered the area called Africa with such animosity toward people of color? It must be understood that when the Europeans started the colonization of the area called Africa in the late 15th century, so this right here is a misconception. They never really colonized, remember, until the 1800s, until the Berlin Conference. That's when they really colonized Africa, guys. There's no other colonization before that. This is based on the false West African slaves. He's saying they got millions of people to work with them. Nah, that never really happened. They had tiny little settlements. They were doing trade. They were doing different things. These Sephardic, Portuguese Jews and Moors. Yeah, they were doing different things. Yeah, they were enslaving some people, bringing them somewhere else, though. So after the Europeans expelled the Arabs from Europe, they started a campaign of revenge against them, the Arabs, because of the fact that they had occupied their land. So this is a little misconception. Now he's saying that Europeans are white, and that when the Moors or these Almoravids, really from Arabia, went into Spain, that they fought white folks. So now we're going into the hijack here. This is what I'm saying. Like, yeah, we get a lot of drop from these authors, but then we got to dodge sometimes when it comes to when they start showing what they believe. So now Moors and Europeans, yeah. But it's very important what we learned, right? So we got the Slav, yeah. So he's gonna turn people, black and white here. He's gonna do the same thing that he's talking about, unfortunately. So this is on archive.org. If you want to read the whole thing, go ahead. You're gonna see. I'm not trying to hide anything. Go ahead. You guys are gonna see. I did skim through the book. So yeah, so he goes going. It gets pretty good actually. It gets really good. We're gonna end it right here. We got the main point. A lot of these nations are coming in from other parts of the world. A lot of so-called Arab people, ancient, original people from the areas what they call Arab nations today, migrated to Africa, guys, and became a lot of your ruling ethnic groups, or just regular ethnic groups that might not be ruling, but they did in general take the power in Africa and are the ruling ethnic groups now. And they're not indigenous to Africa. All right. Make sure to catch the previous parts, right? I actually might drop a video later on today too. That's why I'm kind of ending it, so you guys can, so I don't make it too long and stuff, and we can have another video for later. All right. Make sure to watch these videos if you haven't, right? So you guys can see it's just undeniable. It starts adding up, guys. Look, it's starting to add up, and we're just getting started. But we got the idea ingrained in us now. We're starting to understand a little bit. deeper now, deeper. And I know a lot of people say, I knew this already. I already, yeah, but not as deep as we're getting. Even this author, he's deep, but he didn't, not, he's missing a whole lot. But shout out to Tariq Berry, whoever he is. Shout out for that book, all right? Because it just confirms the research and he just added a lot more to follow up on, right? Check out the playlist, guys, all right? I'm going to share it right now on the, it's also going to probably pop up at the end of this video if you're watching this later. I'll try to make sure it does that. But here's a playlist if you want to catch all the previous episodes, if you like this type of topic, okay? I appreciate you guys very much tuning in on your Saturday, on your Shabbat. Do a little reading with me, a little education, a little learning, a little building together, studying together. Yeah, that's what I'm saying, studying together. Sometimes I like to do it live like this, it's just more personal, more better. It makes it more fun for me too. Like, it's not just me recording and hearing myself. Like, I get to interact, I get to express my feelings as I'm reading with you, because most of this I hadn't read before. That's why when I react to certain things, it's real reaction. I skim through things, but I'm not reading it thoroughly until I'm actually here live with you. So appreciate you guys sticking around to the end. A good amount of time, about an hour and a half. Make sure people sit down and actually watch the videos. A lot of people have a hard time getting past 10 minutes, shorts and all that, because of our indoctrination, and they've made us a little bit mind lazy. Anyways, I appreciate you guys coming through. 1 second. All right. There we go. Yeah, so a lot to any suggestions, anything you want to help in when it comes to this research, let me know. Okay, my email is in the about section of my main page. You'll see my email there. You could also find me on Instagram or my Patreon page if you'd like to support what I do. You can find me there, or on Telegram. I'm on Telegram. Okay, let me just see what's going on here with. Appreciate all you guys tuning in. I'm just looking at the chat, everybody. I'm looking at some of the comments real quick. Appreciate anybody that donated. Thank you. Anybody becoming a member. Thank you. All right, where are we? Yeah. Really appreciate you guys. Let's see what we got here. All right. So once again, appreciate you guys. Have a great Saturday. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your patience when I'm live, and also for any interruptions. Thank you for understanding, overstanding. Much love and respect. Pura vida, mi gente. Hawaii. Wow.